What up, nerds? Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. My name is Leslie Smith, and in today's video, I am going to talk about all of the things that I read this week. My weekly reading update, I always do these on Fridays. We will start with all of the things that I finished. I did finish quite a few things. The first being, y'all know, if you watched last week's video, I finished Beach Read by Emily Henry. I just absolutely loved it. It is my new top favorite by her. It's hard to lose with me when it's a book about books, especially when the main characters are in the book world. And this one, our main characters are a literary writer and a women's literature writer, and they make a bet with each other, challenge each other to write a book in the other one's genre, and it was so delightful. Emily Henry excels at banter, especially when it's bookish banter. I can't get enough. I'm so excited. She has a new book coming out, and I've got to work in the last one I have of her backlog, People We Meet on Vacation, and I have it because my friend Sue's gifted it to me for Christmas, so I am ready to go. My next finished read is The Puzzle Master by Danielle Trussoni. I was obsessed with this book. My interest was immediately piqued by the definition, just a simple definition given on the first page of the book. Let's see if it does the same for any of you. Acquired savant syndrome is a rare but real medical condition in which a normal person acquires extraordinary cognitive abilities after a traumatic brain injury. There are fewer than 50 documented cases of acquired savant syndrome in the world. I was immediately captured by that. I'd never heard of acquired savant syndrome, and I instantly wanted to know everything I could about it. That was just one of the many things that had me turning these pages. I was so obsessed with it that I didn't want to put it down. So I looked at my library to see if they had the audiobook. They did, thank goodness. I checked it out. So when I couldn't sit down and read physically, I was listening to it. It was amazing. Well, chapter 1 turns out to be a letter written in 1909. And if I had not already been interested to read this book, this letter is what had me turning these pages like crazy, reading late into the night. I want to share a small portion of it and tell me if this doesn't make you want to read this book. I have suffered, but it is the suffering of a man who has created his own torture chamber. I believed I could know what shouldn't be known. I wanted to see things, secret things, and so I lifted the veil between the human and the divine and stared directly into the eyes of God. That is the nature of the puzzle, to offer pain and pleasure by turns. And while the truth I am about to reveal may shock you, if it offers some small refuge of hope, then this, my last communication, will achieve all it must. Y'all, I needed to know what the truth that man was talking about in that letter was. I mean, I just could not wait to get started. This was one of those literary thrillers that you start off with a seemingly insignificant mystery and it just grows legs and evolves beyond what your mind could even contain. It starts with something so simple as a doctor calls our main character, Mike Brink, who is the one that has the acquired savant syndrome. He's a puzzle maker. That's what he does for his job. He creates puzzles that are printed into the New York Times for people to have fun solving. Puzzles are what makes sense to Mike. Ever since his accident in high school when he was injured and suffered that injury to his brain where he sees the world differently. Numbers are shaded, they represent colors, things of that nature. So when he gets the call from a doctor from a prison that she has a puzzle she needs him to see, his curiosity won't let him say no. Once Mike lays eyes on this puzzle, which happens to be drawn by a convicted murderer, by the way, he sees this puzzle, he recognizes that it's incomplete, but that's all it takes. Once he sees it, he has to solve it. This journey and where it leads him on his quest to solve this puzzle, I was just absolutely blown away. And there's an element that is a part of this story that I just loved. I didn't know it was in here. There's no mention of it in the book description, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. But if you're someone who likes folklore, religious mystery, religious horror, this is one you are definitely going to want to pick up. And now is an excellent time to mention, in the description box down below, I will have links to my non-spoiler written reviews for both Beach Read and The Puzzle Master. You can take a look at at the full book description, and also there will be a place where you can pick up a copy if you choose. I was also able to continue in my Dresden Files reread. That journey continued with a short story from the Side Jobs collection called Love Hurts. This short story featured a rather hilarious event. Well, maybe not hilarious. Maybe that's the wrong word. There was humor. There's always humor when you have anything regarding Harry Dresden. There are also some bittersweet, some sad moments when you consider what happened in this story and consider what's happening in the series as a whole. But if you read the short stories as you're reading the series and it's your first time through, you would probably just see the humor side of it. And then after I finished that short story, I was ready to dive into my next Dresden novel, which is Changes of Favorite. As you can see, I am blazing through it. I'm just having the best time with this book. I knew that I would. It's my favorite in the entire series, and so far, being over halfway through, I can confirm that has not changed. It is still my favorite book in the series. I need to check with Chris. My husband is reading the series for the first time. He's on Changes. I know he started it. I don't know how far he is in it right now, but I need to check and see where he is so we can chat about a few things. Y'all, it has been so much fun rereading this series, and then my husband's reading it for the first time. I am a happy girl. I am also still working my way through the anthology edited by Jordan Peele, Out There Screaming. I'm over halfway done. Now, the second story in the collection, Eye and Tooth by Rebecca Roanhorse, has been my favorite since I started the collection. I was beginning to think that might be my favorite of the collection until a couple days ago. I finally read another story in here that I like more. It's called Dark Home by, let me get the author's name because this is a new to me author, Naniti Okorafor. This short story is about a woman who has just lost her father. She flew his body back to Nigeria to lay him to rest, and she interrupted a ritual ceremony held by a secret society of men that her father belonged to. Interrupting this ceremony had consequences that followed her back to the States, and my goodness, it was so good. That is my new favorite of the collection, and then the one that came right behind it called Flicker by L.D. Lewis. That's my second favorite of the collection. So Eye and Tooth has been knocked down to number 3. I still have about half the collection to go, so I'm interested to see if somebody is going to beat out one of those 3. I'm also still working my way through the web serial Our Kindred List. Poor Eric, he is just having a time. He accidentally created a very powerful new basic spell to go into the script for the magical world of Weird. While that has not been done in many, many years, it's a huge deal, but it has put him on a playing field full of landmines that he's having to navigate through. And I think he's finally come out on the other side of that and handled it and learned a very valuable lesson. So I'm eager to see what we're going to move on to and see what the next thing is that he's going to flub up, because that just seems to be what Eric's going to do, and I love it. For those of you who might have missed the recent video where I talked about reading the first 10 volumes of Spy Family by Tetsuya Endo, y'all, I just couldn't wait for another volume to be printed, so I got a subscription to the Shonen Jump app. I put it on my iPad, so now when I'm watching basketball at night, when the commercials come on, I'll read a quick chapter. So I'm slowly catching up on that. I think I have about 30 chapters to go and I'll be current. The only other book that I have going, I started Vensong by Jonathan Neves Myers. This is the first book in the Vensong quartet. I keep meaning to check to see how many of the books in the quartet have been published. I will do my best to check and let you guys know next week. This is a very interesting fantasy dystopia where readers are immediately thrown into the action, where chapter 1s open up with humans, the world is being invaded by these beings known as light birds. Humanity is literally in the process of fleeing to the safety of these cocoons, which are located a mile underwater right off the shore in the ocean. I don't know about any of y'all, but this girl does not do water she can't see to the bottom of. There's no way. I would die of heart failure if you told me I was going to have to live in a cocoon a mile underwater. Nope. Nope. I have said for years that my attitude and personality is solar powered. You cut me off from the sun, it ain't gonna be happy for nobody. Go ahead and let the light birds have me. So we have Rowan, his wife, his child, his brother Jason. They're running together to the cocoon. Jason hears a baby crying and it sounds like it's coming from a cave. He's got to go save this baby. Rowan can't let his brother go alone. The rescue attempt is successful. The child, who is later named Marla, she's our main character, she is taken in by Rowan and his family and raised since they were never able to find out who her actual parents were. So in chapter 2, 20 years have passed. Humanity has lived underwater for 20 years. Food is the currency of this new society. If you don't work, you don't eat. Hundreds of these cocoons exist under the water near shorelines all over the world. And the reason why they're underwater, that's their safety net. Light birds cannot survive water hitting them. It kills them. They call it grave water. If it's not glaringly obvious, I have loved learning about everything to do with the light birds. Where did they come from? Why did they come to Earth? What is their purpose? Why does water kill them? I have so many questions, and now that I'm 60% of the way through, a lot of those questions have been answered, but they've also led to more questions. Even though the story opens up with humans taking refuge in these cocoons underwater, I won't say how or why, but now the story is taking place back on the island. I mean, if you read the full book description, you'll be able to guess why the story is now on the island. I will definitely have this one finished when I check in with y'all next week, can share my final thoughts. Those are all the things that I am reading. Let's talk about what I'm going to read next. Thanks to my wonderful friend Evie from the channel She Was Only Evie. She sent me a message to let me know that a book went up on NetGalley that I would probably be interested in reading. She was absolutely right. I hit request. I just got approved for it. Shauna Lawless has a prequel novella to her Gale Song series called Dreams of Fire. From what I understand, this prequel takes place 100 years before the first book in the series, The Children of God and Fighting Men, and it's the story of Fadla and her sister Ronnet, and I am so excited. I cannot wait to read this one. That's one of my favorite ongoing historical fantasy series, just full of Irish history, mythology, and folklore. I just can't get enough. I cannot wait to read this. It'll tide me over until I can get the third book, which I think is coming out in September of this year. Provided that I am able to wrap up my anthology, Vensong, and Dreams of Fire, I'm going to read the arc for Mark Towse's new book coming out soon called Chasing the Dragon. This one is about a superhero named Reformer. Apparently he is going to save his town that is drowning in drugs and filth, human indecency. Probably a lot of humor in this one. That's been my experience with Mark Towse's previous writings, and that's gonna do it for this week. That's all the stuff that I read, all the stuff that I'm reading, and what I'm planning to read next. All of the books talked about in today's video, I'm gonna have linked in the description. Thank you so much for being here and watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, a wonderful weekend, and I'll catch you in the next one.